Junot Diaz, the money. All the Dominicans I knew in those days sent money home. My mother certainly did. She didn't have a regular job outside of caring for us 5 kids, so she scrimped the loot together from whatever came her way. My father was always losing his forklift job, so it wasn't like she had a steady flow ever. But my mother would rather have died than not send money back home to my grandparents in Santo Domingo. They were alone down there, and those remittances, beyond material support, were a way I suspect for Mommy to negotiate the absence, the distance caused by our diaspora. Hard times or not, she made it happen. She chipped dollars off from the cash Poppy gave her for our daily expenses, forced our already broke family to live even broker. In those days, when nobody gave a darn about nutrition, we alone among our friends never had juice, soda, snacks in our apartment. Not ever. And you can forget about eating at McDonald's or having clothes with real labels. The family lived tight, and that was how she built the nut that she sent home every 6 months or so to the grandparents. We're not talking about a huge amount either, $200, maybe $300. But in Santo Domingo of those years, in the neighborhood in which my abuelos lived, that 300 smackers was the difference between life and meat and life without, between electricity and Stone Age. All of us kids knew where that money was hidden, too. Our apartment wasn't huge, but we all also knew that to touch it would have meant a violence approaching death. I, who could take the change out of my mother's purse without even thinking, couldn't have brought myself to even look at that forbidden stash. So what happened? Exactly what you would think. The summer I was 12, my family went away on a vacation. One of my father's half-baked, get-to-know-our-country better, sleep in the van extravaganzas. And when we returned to Jersey, exhausted, battered, we found that our front door was unlocked. Stuff was knocked over, including the empty Presidente can my mother considered a decoration. My parents' room, which was where the thieves had concentrated their search, looked like it had been tornado-tossed. The thieves had kept it simple. They'd snatched a portable radio, some of my Dungeon and Dragon hardcovers, and, of course, the remittances my mother had kept hidden back in a drawer. It's not like the robbery came as some huge surprise. In our neighborhood, cars and apartments were always getting jacked, and the kid stupid enough to leave a bike unattended for more than 0.1 seconds was the kid who was never going to see that bike again. There was no respect. Everybody got hit, no matter who you were. Eventually it was your turn. And that summer, it was ours. Still, we took the burglary pretty hard. When you're a recent immigrant and you've put up with a lot of junk because of it, it's easy to feel targeted. Like, it wasn't just a couple of knuckleheads that had it in for you, but the whole neighborhood. Heck, maybe the whole country. I felt that for certain, and shame too. Wondered if it was something we'd done, but I was also pissed. I was at the stage in my nerdery when I thought Dungeons and Dragons was going to be my life, so the loss of those books was akin to having my kidney nicked while I slept. No one took the robbery as hard as my mom, though. My father, for his part, shrugged it off. Wasn't his money or his parents, after all. Went right back to running the streets. But my mother stayed angry in a hulkish way none of us had seen before. You would have thought the thieves had run off with $10 million how she was carrying on. It was bad. She cursed the neighborhood, she cursed the country, she cursed my father, and of course she cursed us kids. Swore the only reason that the robbery happened was because we had run our gums to our idiot friends and they had done it. Something we all denied, of course. And at least once a day, usually while we were eating, she'd say, "I guess your abuelos are going to have to starve now," just in case we kids didn't feel impotent and responsible enough. Anyway, this is where the tale should end, right? Wasn't as if there was going to be any CSI-style investigation or anything. Should have been bye-bye money, bye-bye Dungeon Master's Guide. Except that a couple of days later, I was moaning about the robbery to these guys I was hanging with at that time, and they were cursing sympathetically, and out of nowhere it struck me. You know when you get one of those moments of almost mental clarity, when the nictitating membrane obscuring the world suddenly lifts? That's what happened. For no reason whatsoever, I realized that these two dopes I called my friends had done it. They'd broken into the apartment while we were away and taken our stuff. I couldn't have been any more sure if you'd shown me a video of them doing it. They were shaking their heads, mouthing all the right words, but I could see the way they looked at each other, those Raskolnikov glances. I knew. Now, it wasn't like I could publicly denounce these dolts or go to the police. That would have been about as useless as crying. Here's what I did. I asked the main dope to let me use his bathroom. We were in front of his apartment. And while I pretended to pee, I unlatched the window, and then we all headed down to the community pool as usual. But while they dove in, I pretended to forget something back home. Ran back to the dope's apartment, slid open the bathroom window, and in broad daylight wriggled my skinny tail into his apartment. His mom was, of course, at work. Where the heck did I get these ideas? I have not a clue. I guess I was reading way too much Encyclopedia Brown and the Three Investigators in those days. What can I tell you? That's just the kind of moron I was. Because if mine had been the normal neighborhood, this is where the cops would have been called, and my tail would have been caught burglarizing. Oh, the irony. Imagine me trying to explain that one to my mother. But no matter. Mine wasn't a normal neighborhood, and so no one called anybody. The Dulles family had been in the U.S. all their lives, and they had a ton of stuff in their apartment, a TV in every room. But I didn't have to do a great amount of searching. I popped up the Dulles mattress, and underneath I found my AD&D books and also most of my mother's money. The dolt had thoughtfully kept it in the same envelope. Walked out the front door, and on the run back to my apartment, I kept waiting for the SWAT team to zoom up, but it never happened. And that was how I solved the case of the stupid morons, my one and only case. The next day at the pool, the dolts announced that someone had broken into his apartment and stolen all of his savings. This place is full of thieves, he complained bitterly, and I was like, no kidding. It took me 2 days to return the money to my mother. Truth was, I was seriously considering keeping it. I'd never had that much money in hand, and who in those days didn't want a ColecoVision? But in the end, the guilt got to me, and I gave it to her and told her what had happened. I guess I was expecting my mother to run around in joy, to crown me her favorite son, to at least cook me my favorite meal. Nada. She just looked at the money and then at me and went back to her bedroom and put it back in its place. I'd wanted a party or at least to see her happy, but there was nothing. Just $200 and some odd and 1,500 or so miles. That's all there was.